As Habiba, as an activist and human rights defender, I have done a lot of work around anti-trafficking interventions. And I think really it was just one chance encounter with a sex worker in 2007 when she had come to report about her ordeal at Civil Liberties Committee on how she had been trafficked. That really, it was a turning point for me to really understand that, human trafficking is an issue. So meeting this young sex worker, explaining her horrible ordeal, sort of like triggered my interest in trying to understand the problem comprehensively. And so I sort of like took upon it myself to start researching and understanding issues of human trafficking. Up until there was actually an opportunity through Norwegian Church Aid, which was an international NGO based in Longwe. They opened up a position for an officer to work on the prevention of trafficking in persons. And also this was the first time ever to have an international NGO being funded by a foreign government like the Norwegian government. And I competed with several lawyers, and I was picked based on, I think, maybe the little experience that I had, but also I think because I had demonstrated passion in the issue. So it was pretty much a new area for everyone else, including activists or advocates working in this area. And there hadn't been even any research that had been done locally. But of course we knew that UNODC had done research around Southern Africa, and Malawi was actually identified as a source and transit country for trafficking interventions. Again, the Law Commission opened up consultations to have a trafficking in persons law, and I was deeply, deeply honored to be picked as a special law commissioner to go and help in the drafting of the report, which obviously led to it being a trafficking in persons law. I was really a great advocate at that particular time, focusing really just on anti-trafficking interventions up until it became law. And that's also when I left Norwegian Church Aid after 7 years of just focusing, zeroing in on trafficking interventions. Now I joined UN Women, the country office, which had just opened in 2013, but I joined them in 2014. And because of the opportunities that had been given at Norwegian Church Aid, now I was given the opportunity to manage a big program which was called EVAL, Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls. And then eventually I ended up here at the Human Rights Commission, where I'm presently working now, looking at, broader human rights issues now, getting into the trenches. I would say from the positive side, we have a law, a very progressive law of 2015, which I'm proud to have been part of. It really legislates against, all areas of trafficking, but more importantly, it strengthens pillars of prevention, protection, and prosecution. Again, I think also for the first time, I would say that this law was enacted with a victim-centered approach, so that at least it wasn't only offender-centered. Most of our laws in Malawi are offender-centered, but this was a victim-centered approach law, which I would say that it took a human rights-based approach in its drafts. So I would say that the provisions of the law really take care and the concerns of the victim. It also provides, for example, even for a special fund, that if you're a victim or a survivor of human trafficking, you are able to be assisted through this fund. To top it all, also the law was enriched with the National Action Plan, which was meant to really now sort of like implement what the law has set in place. Most people will tell you in Malawi, if you speak to program people, if you speak to development partners and others, practitioners within our space, they'll say that, Malawi has got a very rich legal and policy framework, but the problem is implementation. So I think having the NAP, the National Action Plan, was very pivotal so that it could help in the implementation of that law. Unfortunately, with all other laws that we've seen, it's very difficult and challenging for Parliament sometimes to really accord enough resources, funding, towards the implementation of these critical laws, particularly when also these laws are demanding that there must be special committees or a special task force that will really implement the law. And as with the case with the other laws, and I think the trafficking in person hasn't escaped that curse because not enough funding has been allocated towards that. And as such, you find that, with trafficking interventions, as I mentioned, with the 3 Ps, prevention, prosecution, and protection, there's need for coordination and coordination of various actors, various institutions coming together, doing their part in the whole chain of the trafficking interventions. And we see that this hasn't been the case, so coordination has been weak. In fact, I have just written an article in Africa, in fact, where I am lamenting the status of trafficking, in Malawi. If you look at the data now, you find that, there's still external trafficking. We've just had 376 to 500 women being trafficked being trafficked to the Middle East. Some are in Oman, some are in Turkey, some are in Qatar. So again, I think if you look at progress, I think we haven't really hit the mark. We haven't really done well in terms of progress, tracking, and helping survivors or victims. We still have issues there. And then also, I think Malawi has also experienced some shocks lately, like COVID-19 and the cyclones. So our people are also migrating from areas where they could not easily, make a living, seeking greener pastures. Because trafficking, sometimes you find that it's people actually leaving one place because they're looking for greener pastures. So I think that in terms of coordinating even the aspects of civic education or giving people some support so that they can remain in the country, like the youth, the young people, has not been something that we've done well. So in that regard, I would say the data shows that we are not doing very well. And also even in terms of coordination, there are lapses, because a coordination mechanism requires resources. And so if you do not fund a coordination mechanism, clearly it means there is not going to be institutional capacity to implement and to enforce the law, as it were. There was a time where, the democracy and governance issues were not, going well in the country. And I had just come back from university then in 2012. I was arrested for demonstrating because also I believe in freedom of expression, and it shouldn't be surprising why today I'm leading the Human Rights Commission, because, human rights are is at the core of the work that I do, but it's also at the core of my likes. And so in 2012, I was among the activists who were arrested, and I spent like 5 days, 1 day at Maula, and then 4 days in a cell. And it was very traumatizing for me, and it's something that I've never opened up, but I was arrested for demonstrating, and I felt that it was too harsh of a punishment for people that were just agitating for change in a peaceful manner. And unfortunately, I also found myself being arrested on Mother's Day. It caused so much pain and trauma for my mother to see that I was arrested on Mother's Day. And the fact that she had to travel all the way from Blantyre to Lilongwe to come and look for me where I was being kept. And with the political tactics, they moved us from several cells. We were not in one cell, and I ended up being at Lumbazi. Again, it was really a very difficult and challenging time. So I think that's the time that it hit home, because I felt that my family had to suffer for the work that I was doing. The global support was overwhelming. My school at Notre Dame, the Civil and Human Rights Center, it was really very supportive. I remember, and also even the development partners, I thought I would lose my job because I was working for an international NGO, and obviously working for those institutions, even the UN, you're not allowed to demonstrate. But I thought I would have lost my job, but I had great support, and my boss was fantastic, Carrie Oyen. She really covered me. I mention her specifically because she's the one who gave me the opportunity as well to go and study in the US, taking like unpaid leave, but still offered me the job when I came back. And immediately when I came back, I got arrested. So you would have thought that, they would have said this is a troublemaker or a disruptor. But no, they gave me that, great opportunity. Say that as a young activist, who's been very passionate, sometimes I think maybe over passionate, I would say that yes, I am honored and deeply grateful, for the privileges that I've had in my life, through the work that I've had, for example, with the Norwegian Church Aid, especially in the campaign against anti-trafficking. I was able to meet Hillary Clinton, who is my role model, 3 times. I met her in Malawi when she visited as Secretary of State, and then I met her again in Iowa when she was a presidential candidate in 2016, and then I met her again in 2019 where we were giving her an award. But this time round I was working also with Chief Katindamoto. As you know, she's called the Terminator on child marriages. So I was anchoring the work on child marriages with UN Women. So I was also able to really, be recognized for the efforts that we were doing, behind supporting the chief. So I was also honored, to, be recognized by Vital Voices as, being in the top 100 women influencers and change makers. So I would say that I think sometimes you feel like maybe your work is not being recognized, or a prophet is never honored in their own turf, but there are other people that are saying. So I think the opportunities that have been given, I thank God for that. Again, I think even the fact that I was able to, drive the trafficking narrative, it also gave me the opportunity to get a scholarship. The Fulbright scholarship is very prestigious, and even when I went to university, I made sure that I stayed in the same lane, that I'm still focusing on trafficking interventions, and came out also tops in my class because of the same area. And I came back and I thought that maybe that's the end of the awards, but I got another fellowship with Hilton, with Vital Voices again, to become a fellow. The fellows that are recognized, that were recognized in 2019, 2020 for fighting trafficking in their regions. So they took various fellows, and I was one of them. So I would say that there have been great opportunities, but interestingly, lately, since I joined the Commission, I was also honored as an outstanding woman by Reed Satonis in 2022. And I considered that as a great honor, because this is an award that came, from my own home country, and was awarded in my country. So I was deeply, honored, and still I am, in awe of, the recognition that I've been given. Absolutely, absolutely, without any doubt, 100%, 110%, I am a disruptor. Because as I said, I think, disruptors are fearless, but also, they are go-getters, and they believe in what they're fighting for, and I believe always in what I'm fighting for. So because I believe strongly in justice ideals, I would say that I would do anything to fight for justice, to fight for the vulnerable, and to defend, the ones that are defenseless or do not have a voice.